and welcome to another edition of this week's podcast from CORE Ottawa. Visit our website, coreottawa.ca. Sign up for the RSS feed for these podcasts. Download the other podcasts in our archives. Visit the website, coreottawa.ca. Citizens, researching origins for your education. This week's website of the week. Every week, as you know, we try and send out a link to our website pick of the week. This week is the Creation Wikipedia. It's creationwiki.org. There's the address right there. Do visit it. Run by Chris Ashcraft and the kind folks over at Northwest Creation Fellowship. And again, our question of the month. Remember, email us, coreottawa@gmail.com. Send in your rants, raves, answers, queries, hate mail, etc. to coreottawa@gmail.com. Question of the month comes from Vance Nelson, my good buddy way out west in Alberta. Do you think your brain was intelligently designed? Want to hear from you skeptics out there on this one. Come on, email us in. Okay, we have been dealing with the recent Nova PBS show entitled Judgment Day: Intelligent Design on Trial. This, of course, was a documentary on the court case of the Kitzmiller-Dover trial in Pennsylvania. The trial was over the issue of whether intelligent design should be taught in the public schools or not. Hence the reason for our question of the month, do you think your brain was intelligently designed? Okay, this week, what we've been doing, we have been responding to the audio sound bites straight off the PBS website. If you go to the Intelligent Design, the Judgment Day website, the Nova PBS website, there's the web address there, pbs.org/WGBH/Nova/ID. When you get partway down that page, you'll see the link to Defining Science. Here's 7 experts briefly describe the essence of science. And we have been listening to the sound bites, the audio clips, straight off the Nova website. This week, we've gotten up to Ken Miller. Now, some of you may be surprised. I'm actually going to agree with almost everything Dr. Miller says. I'm going to ignore most of what he says simply because, hey, I agree. I agree on the majority of his comments on science. In both cases, it was right till he got to the end, sounded great. Then he got to his closing comments, and that's where I choked a little. So let's go to Ken Miller and hear what he has to say.
So by placing the supernatural as a cause in science, you effectively have what you might call a science stopper. If you attribute an event to the supernatural, you can by definition investigate it no further.
Okay. What Dr. Miller is accusing the intelligent design community of is stopping science. Hogwash. We're not stopping science. In no way, shape, or form are we stopping science. Now, when you take a look at the space shuttle, some people might take issue with my making a crude analogy and using a car as an example of using the tool of intelligent design. Now remember, we are dealing with the origin of life here and the origin of the species. We're not dealing with basic science of light going through prisms and stuff. That's not what we're dealing with. The whole debate of intelligent design and where that tool is used is on the origins debate and trying to settle the issue between evolution and creation, both of which are blind faith, both of which are outside of the natural realm. Nobody was there when either the first life somehow spontaneously arose through natural processes while defying natural processes, go figure, or they were created by a supernatural being, Creator God. In either case, both of them are outside of the realm of the natural. So we have to approach this subject as a forensic investigation. We do not have witnesses. Nobody was there to observe the event in good science. We can't repeat it. We can't predict what the outcome would be. It can't be repeated. So we have to approach it as a forensic case and look at the evidence we have at hand now and try and extrapolate back to see which faith, creation or evolution, fits the facts. This is where the scientific tool of intelligent design comes in. Intelligent design looks at something, says, that was created. When you look at a car, you know it had a creator. When you look at the space shuttle, you know it had a creator. Some might object to that. They say, that's a poor analogy. You know what? I agree. The space shuttle is a poor analogy because it does not even compare to even the simplest of cells. And that brings us to...
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together in a warm welcome for the myth of the day.
We have our wall of fame of famous myths, and we try and highlight one once a week. This week's myth is the simple cell. Yes, boys and girls, there is no such thing as the simple cell. It does not exist. The simple cell is an oxymoron. The simple cell is an evolutionary invention. It does not exist. Even the simplest cell blows the doors off the space shuttle in complexity. When we look at the space shuttle, especially when you look at it closely, and you look at its infrastructure, its complicated systems that are all codependent, they cannot exist without each other. We know the space shuttle had a creator, but the space shuttle pales in comparison to even the simplest cell. A space shuttle cannot reproduce. The space shuttle cannot repair itself. The space shuttle cannot find and process and store its own energy. It has to be supported in doing so. When we take a look in the simple cell, we see things like they're straight out of Star Trek. We see incredible factories that produce these incredibly intricate, complicated machines. When it spits it out of the factory, it attaches a postal code to that piece so that the shuttle knows where to take it in the universe known as the cell. This shuttle will go through automatic garage door openers. It will go through force fields. It will ride on monorails to take the part where it needs to go in the universe known as the cell. Complex robots take these parts and attach them to the cell to build new cells, to reproduce new cells, to fix itself. It has its own complicated power plants that produce incredibly clean and efficient energy. There is no such thing as a simple cell. And that is the myth of the day. The simple cell does not exist. The simple cell is an evolutionary construct which was specifically designed to take away the due glory that is due to the incredible creator who created the cells. And we at CORE Ottawa wish to give that glory back to the creator. We say, well done, God. We are impressed. We are very impressed. Well done. Okay, let's get back to Miller. Miller was talking about the supernatural, and he's saying that this is outside of the natural realm. We can't study it. I completely agree. However, to call it a science stopper is nonsense. We look at a cell, we know it had a creator. In what way is that stopping science? Are we saying don't investigate the cell more? No. We are encouraging the study of the scientific study of the cell. We are encouraging scientific study. But when it comes to the origins debate, it is already settled. Just like you look at a car and you know it had a creator, why would you want to waste time trying to figure out how the car somehow came about without an intelligent designer? Who's wasting time here and who's doing good science? The one who takes the car apart to try and figure out how it was assembled and how the intelligent designer built it? Or the person who attempts to figure out how that car came about without an intelligent designer? Judge for yourself. Okay, let's go to next comments up from Miller. What does he have to say next?
I think it's a gross mischaracterization to take scientists in the past who were people of faith, and Isaac Newton is a good example, and say that Newton worked on the basis of a hypothesis of design. Well, it's true that he certainly believed in a creator, and he believed that that creator was the architect of the universe he investigated. But here's the key difference. Newton never proposed God as a cause in any of his theories. In other words, he didn't seek to...
Hold it right there, Ken. Hold it. Hold it. I have a famous quote from Sir Isaac Newton himself. Now remember, we're coming back to the origins debate. What Dr. Miller is suggesting is that Newton did not propose a supernatural origin for things. He most certainly did. Get a load of what he said about the universe. The most elegant systems of suns, planets, and comets could only arise from the purpose and sovereignty of an intelligent and mighty being. He rules them all, not as the soul of the world, but as a sovereign Lord of all things. Now, Newton just took the entire Big Bang Theory, threw it out the window. He said, no, it's obvious. You look at the universe, it's obvious it had a creator. Newton just stopped science, according to Dr. Miller. Did he stop science? No. Newton was one of the founding fathers of the modern days of science, but he attributed the origin of things to a creator God because it was obvious. There is no other reason. Okay, last soundbite from Dr. Miller. Here we go.
The point here is that what Newton and other scientists did was to assume that the universe made sense because it had a designer, and then to use what we would call ordinary material scientific methods to investigate that universe. That's just what science does today.
Okay, I'm going to stop him just there for a second. The reason I played that soundbite because I wanted you to hear his lead-in to his final comment, because I actually agree with him up until this point. I agree. There is a point where science has to stop because you do venture into the supernatural realm. For example, the origin of life. Once again, this is where it all comes down to. Natural laws say life only comes from life. So why are you going to then venture into the supernatural with science and attempt to find out how life arose from non-life, contrary to natural laws? Anyway, we'll move right along from there.
What intelligent design pretends to do is to be in the tradition of Newton. What intelligent design actually is, to be perfectly honest, is they're in the tradition of the Middle Ages, where they stop investigation by saying, we cannot answer this mystery, it is the work of God the designer. This is a science stopper.
Once again, when we come back to the origins debate, which is what this is all about, no, we are not stopping science. It is just that the answer is obvious, but Dr. Miller and various evolutionary scientists are not satisfied with that answer. Why? They do not want there to be a creator God. It has nothing to do with science. It has nothing to do with science. And their argument that we are somehow stopping science by pointing to the blatantly obvious evidence that there is a creator God, and then saying, well, there you have it. We were created. The car had a creator. It's obvious. Why would you waste your time trying to investigate it otherwise? And why would you criticize those who come to the obvious conclusion that the car had a creator, that the simple cell had a creator, that life only comes from life? Completely in line with observable, repeatable, predictable science, which is all good science. Now, hopefully you'll join us again for next week. We're going to move on. Next week we are going to take a listen to... Who are we listening to next week? Oh, yes, Neil Shubin, paleontologist from the University of Chicago and the Field Museum. So we will be moving along in the sound bites. Hopefully we'll have some updates as well next time on the upcoming National Creation Conference here in the nation's capital in Canada. I'm your host, Ian Juby, signing off. Please join us again for next week's podcast. Don't forget, send us your comments and feedback to coreottawa@gmail.com. Bye-bye for now.